Have you ever noticed how we wait for a hero to walk through the door and fix everything that is broken? We often treat the big problems of our world like a movie where the smartest person in the room discovers a secret formula at the very last second. We sit in our chairs and watch the news waiting for a giant machine or a brilliant new law to suddenly make the air clean and the weather calm again. This way of thinking feels safe because it places the responsibility on someone else far away. We like to believe that technology is a magic wand that can undo decades of damage with a single click. But as the years go by and the summer heat grows more intense, we start to feel a strange knot in our stomachs. We see small wins here and there, but they feel like trying to empty the ocean with a tiny spoon. We are living in a moment where the old stories are no longer working. The idea that someone else will handle it is starting to crumble. We find ourselves in a world where the people with the most money and power are often the ones making sure things stay exactly as they are. This creates a deep sense of frustration and fear. We feel small because the problem is so large. But what if our focus has been in the wrong place all along? What if the solution is not a silver bullet from a laboratory but a change in how we stand together in our own neighborhoods? We are going to explore why waiting for a perfect invention is a trap and why we need to become a new kind of person called an apocalyptic optimist. This is not about giving up hope but about changing the kind of hope we carry. It is about realizing that while we cannot stop every shock, we can choose how we fall and how we get back up. On the surface, we believe that human cleverness is infinite and will always outrun our mistakes. The surface concept here is that we can continue our current lifestyle as long as we switch to a different power source. We look at electric cars or solar panels and think they are the total answer. On the surface, it seems like the only way to make a difference is to be a powerful politician or a billionaire scientist. We think that if we just vote the right way or buy the right products, the system will fix itself. This surface view tells us that the climate crisis is a technical problem that needs a technical fix. We assume that the interests of big business will eventually align with the health of the planet because it makes financial sense. But this view ignores the reality of how power works. On the surface, we are told to be patient and to trust the process. But while we wait, the process is being slowed down by those who benefit from the status quo. This surface level of thinking keeps us passive and prevents us from seeing the real work that needs to be done on the ground. Behind this surface view of technology lies a hidden assumption that we can solve the climate crisis without changing our social fabric. We often assume that as long as we have the right tools, the way we treat our neighbors and our communities does not matter. But the hidden truth is that technology is only as good as the hands that hold it. We assume that the biggest threat is the carbon in the air when the hidden threat is actually the isolation in our hearts. We have been taught to be individual consumers rather than community members. This hidden assumption makes us vulnerable to the shocks that are coming. We assume that the government or big insurance companies will always be there to catch us after a storm or a drought. But the hidden reality is that these systems are reaching their limits. We assume that incremental change is better than no change at all, but the hidden truth is that small steps can be a form of distraction. They give us a false sense of progress while the core of the problem remains untouched. We assume that being an optimist means believing things will go back to the way they were. However, the hidden reality is that the world is changing forever, and true optimism is believing we can build something beautiful in the midst of that change. This leads us to a structural pattern of how power is held in our society. We see a pattern where fossil fuel interests have a physical and legal grip on the way decisions are made. This is not just a few bad people in a room, it is a structural design that prioritizes short-term profit over long-term survival. This pattern repeats itself in every country where the resources for change are blocked by the people who own the old resources. We see a structure of dependency where we are forced to use systems that we know are hurting us. Another structural pattern is our lack of local resilience. We have designed our lives to depend on global supply chains that are very fragile. We get our food from thousands of miles away and our energy from giant grids that can fail. This structure makes a local problem turn into a global disaster very quickly. When a shock hits, we realize that we do not know the names of the people living next door. This pattern of disconnection is the structural weakness that makes the climate crisis so dangerous. If we do not have a structure for helping each other, we will only have a structure for competing with each other when things get difficult. We can reframe our entire perspective by embracing the idea of apocalyptic optimism. This sounds like a contradiction, but it is actually a powerful way to live. Instead of seeing the coming shocks as the end of the world, we can reframe them as a call to wake up. We can reframe our role from being passive observers to being bridge builders and disruptors. Reframing the future means accepting that the world will be warmer and more difficult, but deciding that we will not let it be less human. We can reframe the climate crisis as an opportunity to fix our broken social connections. Instead of focusing only on the carbon, we can reframe our success by how much less people suffer in our own towns. We can reframe our frustration with big systems by realizing that the most important work is often the smallest. This perspective shift takes the power away from the fossil fuel interests and puts it back into our own hands. We no longer have to wait for a silver bullet because we are the ones making the change. When we reframe our fear as a source of energy for activism and community building, we stop feeling paralyzed. We start to see that resilience is not a technology you buy but a relationship you grow. Applying this to your daily life starts with the very simple act of looking around your own neighborhood. You can apply the idea of resilience by asking who in your street would need help if the power went out for a week. Do you know who is elderly or who needs medicine? You can apply the role of a bridge builder by starting a local garden or a tool-sharing group. These things might seem small compared to a global crisis, but they are the structural units of survival. You can apply the mindset of a disruptor by looking at your own habits and seeing where you are still feeding the old systems that block change. This might mean changing where you keep your money or how you speak about the future. You can apply the practice of being prepared for shocks without being consumed by panic. This means learning basic skills like how to grow food or how to fix things instead of throwing them away. You can apply the principle of rally and activism by showing up for local meetings where decisions about land and energy are made. You do not need a degree in science to have a voice. You only need the courage to say that the human cost of waiting is too high. By building these local layers of support, you are limiting the human suffering that will come as the world changes. This is the real work of the 21st century. As we sit with these thoughts, we realize that the most important technology we have is each other. We have spent so much time looking at screens and waiting for a genius to save us that we forgot the power of the human circle. The future is indeed up to us, but that does not mean we have to carry it alone. It means we have to carry it together. The shocks are coming and the world is warming, but the strength of our bonds can be colder than any storm and stronger than any flood. We are moving from a story of individual survival to a story of collective resilience. This is a journey of letting go of our old comforts and finding a new kind of satisfaction in being useful to those around us. We are learning that a silver bullet is a myth, but 1,000 silver needles of local action can sew the world back together. The transition is not just about changing our fuels, it is about changing our values. It is about deciding that no one is disposable and that we will not turn away from the challenges ahead. We can be honest about the darkness while still being the ones who carry the light. This is the heart of the apocalyptic optimist. We see the end of one way of living and we use our hands to build the beginning of a better one. We are the activists and the bridge builders that the future is waiting for. If you knew for certain that no magic technology was going to arrive to save your community from the next big crisis, what is the first thing you would do today to make sure your neighbors are safe and connected to each other?